Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. If you're not sure who I am, I'm Victoria Sharp, and I just wanted to go through a really quick video of something that I did this past few months. I was traveling quite a bit and we took over 15 flights, which is exciting because you're going on a journey and a destination. But one of the things that I do not like about flying and traveling in general is being confined in a small chair or space for long periods of time. And especially, flying overseas, one of our flights was about 12 hours. So that's a long time to be confined in a small chair. And so I started doing a few little stretches in my chair. So like a mini yoga class for myself to keep my body active, keep it moving, especially on those long flights, but it's not even a bad idea on short flights. And I thought that I would also share this because there's a lot of us that are sitting in chairs a lot throughout the day. Maybe we have office jobs, and you could throw this into your routine, taking about 5 to 10 minutes, and it would really help your body feel rejuvenated throughout the day. So I'm not going to go through all the reps that I did just because I want to save time. I'm just going to show you all the exercises, and then you can choose if you want like maybe two, maybe up to 5 reps of each thing. It's not going to be limited, and if it feels good, just keep on doing it. So I'm just going to sit back in my chair here. So I always like to start from the feet down. So if you're like me, I'm all cuddled up or legs crossed or however I am in my chair on the plane. And if you're at an office desk, maybe you find that you tend to slouch a little bit if you're working on a computer, whatever that may be. So the first thing is to try to get yourself to sit up nice and tall on your sits bones so that your spine is feeling really elongated. Now, if you want to work with some breath work at first to get you zoned in, that's always great. Maybe closing your eyes, doing a little bit of box breathing. So inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, and then holding for 4 counts. Or just zoning into that breath to get you into the moment. Then I like to start from my feet. So if you can take your shoes off, that is always best. If you're limited, then I understand. You can't always have your shoes off in every venue, but ground your feet down onto the floor. Then I like to keep all my toes on the floor and then just concentrate on lifting my big toe off and then press it down and alternate to keeping my big toe on the floor and all my toes off the floor. Then I even work through flexing just my toes off the floor and then all the way up to my heels. I hope you can see that. And then I roll it back down and I press to the balls of my feet all the way to a point. So working through the feet this way, like a little bit of a rolling action. So that's the first thing I do. Then I start to isolate my ankle movements and I do a few rolls of my ankle. Now, if you're finding this to be too much, you can even take your hands underneath your knee. If you have armrests, you can put them on there so that you're really just working on zoning that ankle movement in, and a few each direction or alternating, trying to make the circles nice and big. From there, moving on to my knees, we tend to forget about them a lot. I like to try to straighten my legs out. Now that usually feels good. You can continue with the feet movements if you want, pointing and flexing, and then bending it back in. Sometimes it's hard on the plane to get that movement in, depending if you have things underneath or if space is limited. But working that movement really feels nice if your legs have been cramped up. Then I move into a little bit of internal and external rotation with the knee. So by holding my thigh, I give it a little bit of support. I try to isolate the knee to be facing forward, and then I move the rotation in and out. So when I'm saying in, my knee is feeling like it's going in, but my foot is going out. So it's a little bit of that opposing movement. So I would go through that on each leg. Really trying not to let anything move from the knee up into the hip. So isolating that movement from the bottom. If you want to add some circles, always depends on space. I like to throw that in sometimes as well. So moving on into my hips, this is probably one of the hardest ones to get a full range of motion, especially if you're limited to staying into a travel space. If you can get up during your flight, It's always great to just give those legs a stretch out and let those hips have a relaxed position from this flexion through the whole time. Again, reaching out with the leg, that helps. Even if you can lean back a little bit, and this is also helpful to engage the core and hover that leg so that you can feel the stretch in the front of the hip flexors. It might not be much, but after you've been in flexion for a long time, it's nice to feel that elongation through that hip flexor. You could even do some pelvic tilts, front and back, to try to get some movement in the low back as well. Okay, so then another tip I use to try to get into the hips is just even picking up my knee and circling it. Now, this can get a little bit awkward if you're sitting beside someone that you are not familiar with, but hopefully they don't mind. You might want to skip that one if you're feeling a little bit too confined with that person. Okay, now moving up into our back and our spines, some simple cat-cows by placing our hands on our knees. Again, starting sitting upright, nice and tall. Inhale and gaze up. Lift your heart to the ceiling. And then exhale and let it roll back and press back. And you can use the traction on your knees and keep that movement flowing in and out. Now, if you're similar to I am, sometimes I get a little bit motion sick on the plane. So in that case, just keep your head neutral. I find that that helps. And just keep the movement in your spine so that you're not having your head moving up and down. Now, I always love a good twist. It doesn't matter where I am, so of course I would not skip out on that. So by placing your opposite hand to the outside of your opposite knee, and then taking that other hand behind you, and then allowing your torso to turn towards that knee. Now watch if this opposite knee doesn't try to jut forward. We're gonna try to keep those nice and even in the front here. So you can use your hand here to help guide you through. And depending on your mobility or how you feel, if you're traveling, will depend on where you take your gaze. So it's fine to keep it straight, look over your shoulder, or if you really don't want to have that head movement, keep your head forward and then back to center, holding it for a few breaths, trying to feel that movement when you go to the other side as well. Again, sitting up nice and tall in your spine. Okay, so let's move on to our shoulders. I find this one a little bit hard when you're traveling, especially like I said, if you're not beside a companion, if you're beside somebody that you don't know, arms going all over the place. So simple shoulder rolls in spot. You can usually manage to get that, so you can do those front and back. If you're working at an office chair or at home and you don't need to worry about having your space, then you can even place your fingertips on your shoulders and you can start using your chest and scapula to open and close. So similar to those cat-cows, but we're just going to be broadening it up a little bit more into our chest. And then we can even shrug our shoulders up and down. So you can work through quite a few movements, trying to work your breath to slow down with each movement. And if you want, you can move into bigger shoulder rotations. I like keeping my fingertips on my shoulders. Helps me concentrate on focusing it into the shoulder instead of when our arms are out and our hands and different things start moving. One of my all-time favorites is clasping my hands and putting them on my head and then inhaling and reaching them up, letting the shoulders shrug up and exhaling down. So doing quite a few movements like that. Then of course, I always like to get into my neck, so we can make these simple and juicy and get a really great feeling from them by just dropping one ear to the same shoulder, letting your breath focus on the opposite side, lengthening, thinking about lengthening the shoulder down in the opposing direction and back up, and then of course to the other side. You can take this movement to have your head included or going down. You can lift it up. Nice slow movements, even if you want to add a few neck rolls in there, going both ways. Anything really goes. So that's just a few of the little things that I like to do. You can make it take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it really does help rejuvenate that body as you've been traveling and flying. And like I said, if you find yourself sitting in a desk for a long time or in any position for a long time and you just want to do some easy movements to help open those up, I find those really helpful. So maybe you can add that into your routine, or the next time you're taking off on some exciting travels, think about doing that while you're on your flight or your train or wherever you are, and really enjoy those movements without having to worry too much about all the extra things that are going on around you. So thank you for watching. Love you and take care. Bye.